These freaks, as you call them, are currently worth billions. Gentlemen, Squiscar Squig Elf, taller than a tree. Toki Wartooth, not a bumblebee. William Murderface, Murderface, Murderface. Pickles, the drummer. Doodly doo, ding dong, doodly doodly doo. Nathan Explosion. I'm afraid that's all we know, gentlemen.
Welcome back to the channel, folks. Over a year ago, I opened my Sleeping Dogs video by talking about games that didn't fail because they were bad, but because of circumstances out of their control. Days Gone, which I also recently covered, falls into that category. And so does today's game. When Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy launched in 2021, despite solid reviews and even winning Best Narrative at the Gaming Awards, most people still wrote it off. After the disaster that was Marvel's Avengers, nobody wanted to give another Square Enix-published Marvel title a chance. And that's a tragedy, because Eidos Montreal delivered an outstanding, faithful, and honestly fun single-player adventure starring our favorite group of space misfits. Where Days Gone felt like a solid foundation for something better, Guardians absolutely knocks it out of the park on the first try. A big part of that success comes down to the writing. The story here is sharp, heartfelt, and surprisingly mature, without losing the goofy charm you'd expect from the Guardians. This version of the team manages to strike a perfect balance between the comics and the MCU, borrowing the best parts from both while avoiding their baggage. What we're left with is a fresh, original take that feels entirely its own, and avoids being another slow origin story. The game sidesteps so many of AAA gaming's worst habits. Instead of the expected open-world game, it's a focused, linear, chapter-based adventure that avoids feeling bloated or outstaying its welcome. The story knows exactly when to call it a day, and that pacing makes that experience all the more memorable. Now sure, the gameplay isn't groundbreaking, and there are definitely a few rough edges, but its simplicity works in its favor. It doesn't overwhelm you with systems or mechanics just for the sake of it. Anyone can easily pick up the game and understand how to play almost immediately. Its lack of depth does lead to some repetitiveness, but I never felt bored during my 20 hours playing the game. So let's see what makes Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy an underrated gem that deserves its time in the sun. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you're new to the channel.
Birthday boy? No wonder you couldn't hear me. Is that your new tape?
Star-Lord. Who's the guy with the scary eyes?
He doesn't have a name. He's one of the space riders. And he's not scary, he's cool.
Your space rider certainly got his hands full.
Similar to its movie counterpart, Guardians of the Galaxy opens with a brief prologue of a young Peter Quill back on Earth. Instead of being in the hospital room preparing for his mom's death, this version of Peter is rocking out in his room and celebrating his 13th birthday. Also, Meredith Quill is looking, considerably healthier too. Peter, respectfully, I know she died after contracting space cancer from Kurt Russell, but dude, your mom is a MILF. Outside of interacting with a bunch of stuff in his room, we don't learn much during this intro, just that Peter loves his mommy, and that the alias he uses in the present day comes from his favorite metal band, Star-Lord. And holy shit, these guys shred. It's not just a one-off song either. Steve Shipkowski, the senior audio director at Eidos Montreal, and his friend Johan Budrolt composed an entire album for Star-Lord. They even recorded a music video too. Each track is a certified banger, and if you'd never played this game, you might actually think they were a legit 80s band. I'm pretty sure I can play Star-Lord's music without fear of a copyright claim, so here's a little taste of their song Zero to Hero. The whole album is on Apple Music and Spotify, so give it a download if you're a fan of 80s metal. Sticking to the topic of music, Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy has an impressive licensed soundtrack. While it's mostly 80s tracks, there's a variety to the music and genres. It's not just the same 5 songs you'd hear on your local 80s classic station. You got A Flock of Seagulls, Blue Oyster Cult, Def Leppard, Frankie Goes to Hollywood, Iron Maiden, Motley Crue, New Kids on the Block, Pat Benatar, and more. Shit, even Rick Astley is here. Yeah, you already know which song of his they put here. The music fits during the scenes where they play too, and it isn't lazy 80s nostalgia pandering. That said, I'm not going to be playing as many cutscenes as I usually do, since most of those tracks pop up during some scenes. The game does offer a streamer mode that disables the licensed music, but I avoided using it to experience the game the way the developers wanted.
Peter Quill. Peter Quill, wake up.
Holy crap, Drax. You gotta stop doing this, man. It's weird.
Uh-oh, look out, Peter. I think your cellmate wants to struggle snuggle. Oh no, wait, that's just Drax. It's time for the Guardians to begin their next scheme. Sorry, I mean mission. Huh, that's certainly an interesting look for Peter. I have no issues with his appearance, and I'm glad the devs didn't just make him look like bargain bin Chris Pratt. But every time Peter pops up in cutscenes, all I can see is Lachlan. You know, the Australian Fortnite YouTuber with like 15 million subs and his own esports league. Or just esports team, I forget. I used to watch him and other Australian Fortnite YouTubers like Muselk and Laserbeam back when Fortnite Battle Royale released in 2017. Good times, good times. Oh hey, a Dazzler poster. After Dagger, Sue Storm, and now Emma Frost, how much do you want to bet that she's the next hot blonde white chick wearing blue and white to get added to Marvel Rivals? Or maybe they'll throw a curveball and add Angel to the roster instead. Returning to our lead, Peter Quill, he shares a lot of similarities with his MCU counterpart, mainly their love of 80s pop culture, man-child tendencies, and also being half alien. However, this version of Star-Lord is more well-known and somewhat respected across the galaxy when we first meet him. While he still has a reputation of being a space pirate due to his time working with Yondu and the Ravagers, Peter is also a veteran of the Galactic War. Taking place 12 years before the start of the game, it was a massive conflict fought between the Chitauri Empire, backed by Thanos, in opposition with the Kree Empire allied with the Resistance Group, made up of different factions and the remains of the Nova Corps. Peter would fight for the Resistance, and sometime after the war ended, he'd meet Gamora, Drax, Rocket, and Groot, and convince them to join his Heroes for Hire mercenary group, aka the Guardians of the Galaxy. The rest of the Guardians also played roles in the war too, but I'll get to that later. This version of Peter is more of a natural leader, and genuinely wants to do good, as opposed to MCU Peter, who was more of a reluctant hero at first. He's also way more level-headed and less impulsive than movie Peter. This version also plays the role of the team dad. He tries to keep the others' bad habits in check, mediates arguments between them, and is usually the voice of reason who has to convince the others to help in situations they'd rather walk away from. Peter isn't perfect. He can be a little naive, he doesn't always think his plans through, and it's obvious he's just winging it most of the time, but he's got a lot of heart. It's understandable why the others follow him, and how he's managed to make so many connections across the galaxy. I'll avoid turning this into a 15-minute section discussing all of the Guardians, and I'll swing back to the others a little later. For now, let's talk about the mission at hand. The Guardians of the Galaxy are on hard times, and low in funds. The Heroes for Hire thing hasn't been as lucrative as Peter had hoped, so he's cooked up a plan to make some money, and possibly form a long-term relationship with his intended client. Peter wants to sneak into the Quarantine Zone, a sector of space that contains tons of debris, ships, and weapons from the Galactic War, in order to hunt down a rare space whale he intends to sell to the monster collector, Lady Hellbender. It's not an easy job though. For one, most of the debris in the QZ is held together by this pink gooey stuff, making the place dangerous to explore. The bigger problem is that it's surrounded by a security grid set up by the galaxy's space cops, the Nova Corps. Getting past the grid is hard enough. The Guardians basically had to shell out whatever money they had left to get a code that would let them through. But if they're caught in the QZ, the Nova Corps will toss them in space jail for who knows how long. So the team needs to coordinate and play it carefully to nab the space whale before the Nova Corps finds them.
And we're in.
Incredible.
I realized there was so much stuff left after the war.
Restraint wasn't very popular in the Chitauri army, especially with Thanos in charge.
Yeah, it's probably all harmless now. I mean, Nova Corps had 12 years to get rid of the heavy-duty explosives, right?
That's why I like you, Quill. You're so pure.
The Guardians split up into two teams. Team Rocket, made up of Rocket, Groot, and Peter, moves on foot through a decrepit mining rig, while Team Green, made up of Drax and Gamora, stays on their ship, the Milano, circling outside the rig. Both teams will need to place thumpers around the mining rig in order to lure the space whale to them so they can capture it. Taking control of Star-Lord, now's a good time to discuss the gameplay, level design, and combat. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy is a linear, single-player action-adventure game. Instead of huge open worlds, it offers a focused, chapter-based experience. While the game does include side paths and hidden areas for collectibles and upgrades, there's no backtracking or open world exploration. Once you progress past certain points, you can't return, which keeps the pacing tight and the story moving forward, though you can replay completed chapters if you want to go back and find anything you missed. As someone who is sick of open world games, I appreciate a AAA game that isn't half-heartedly chasing the trend and bloating its runtime with pointless shit to do. While all 5 Guardians are with you for the entire journey and pitch in during combat, it's a bit disappointing that only Peter is fully playable. I'll circle back to this point when I get into combat. Exploring the game as Peter is a bit of a mixed bag, partially because his movement options are kinda limited. He's got his hover boots, which let him double jump across big gaps, and do quick dashes, both in and out of combat. It gets the job done, but it's nothing too flashy, and I really wish Peter could move a little faster. There's no sprint button, and while the levels aren't huge, his default walking speed just feels sluggish. I was constantly wishing he'd move a little faster, especially during those longer stretches between combat and story beats. Peter's also got a visor that works like the typical detective mode you've seen in tons of other games. Pop it on and you can scan the environment for hidden collectibles, destructible objects, or clues to help you figure out the next puzzle or path forward. It's functional, but again, nothing groundbreaking. Peter's element guns also come into play here. While initially starting as a standard blaster he can use to destroy some obstacles, over the course of the game, Peter will unlock new elemental shots. First is the Ice Shot, which freezes geysers of water to create platforms, and plugs vents spewing toxic gas. Next is the Electric Shot, which reroutes power and turns on machinery. Then we got the Wind Shot, that yanks open specific block paths or doors. And finally the Plasma Shot, which melts ice and burns up dangerous plants. When you run into something that Peter can't handle, that's when you'll call in the rest of the team to assist. Groot can create bridges and lift platforms, Rocket can hack machinery, Gamora can cut down objects hanging from cables, and anchor herself to certain walls to give Peter a lift up. Finally, Drax can move heavy objects around to use his platforms, to reach out of the way areas, or just chuck it to break down vulnerable walls. Overall, exploration is just okay, a combo of the game's linearity, lack of backtracking, and meaningful collectibles keep Guardians of the Galaxy from doing anything really interesting with exploring a level. Without completely redoing the game's level design, I think the best you can do with what's here is having more puzzle sections. Maybe slap some timers on them to create some urgency. Unfortunately, the simplicity in the exploration also carries over into the combat.
Hello? Whoa, another freaky thing!
How, Vicky? Kill it!
You read my mind! He refuses to die!
Just like in the rest of the game, you can only play as Star-Lord during fights, and early on, Peter feels pretty underwhelming. His blasters fire rapidly but don't do much damage, and if you hold down the trigger too long, they'll overheat, leaving you stuck waiting for them to cool down. You can dodge and throw in a few melee hits, but at first, the combat feels a bit basic. As you explore, you'll find crafting materials scattered throughout levels. These can be spent at Rocket's workbenches to upgrade Peter's abilities. Things like a charge shot that hits harder, an instant cooldown for his guns after overheating, or even a perfect parry that slows down time if you time it right. The more you upgrade it, the more useful Peter becomes, but things don't really click until you unlock his elemental shots. That's when combat starts to open up. Each elemental shot has unique effects that tie directly into how you handle different enemies. Ice shots can freeze enemies solid if you stack enough of them, making them easy targets for melee follow-ups. Electric shocks can stun enemies and chain across multiple targets, which make them great for crowd control. Wind shot pulls enemies straight to you, which is perfect for dragging those annoying snipers and flying guys into range. And plasma shots deal damage over time while weakening enemy defenses, letting you melt through tankier mobs much faster. Enemies also often have shields or elemental weaknesses that can only be broken with the right type of shot. So there's a light puzzle element to each encounter. It keeps you switching things up and makes the later fights way more engaging. Elemental shots aren't the only tricks Peter's packing. Both he and the rest of the Guardians can unlock special abilities as the game goes on. After each fight, you'll earn XP based on your performance, rack up enough, and you'll get ability points to spend on unlocking new moves for the team. Peter starts off with Vantage Point, which lets him hover above the battlefield and get a better angle while laying down fire. Then he unlocks Fan the Hammer, a stationary burst of rapid-fire shots that hits hard when timed right. Eye of the Hurricane has him leap into the air and rain down grenades for some solid AoE damage. And his ultimate, Shield of Spartax, makes him completely invulnerable for a short time. That last one's unlocked automatically though through the story and can be a lifesaver in tougher fights.
Peter Quill, hide behind me! I will protect you!
Nobody's hiding!
While you can't directly control the other Guardians in combat, they're far from useless. Through Guardian mode, you can issue commands to each teammate during battle. You hold the right input, pick the Guardian, then choose the ability you want them to use. It's quick, easy, and adds a small layer of strategy without slowing things down. Each Guardian fills a specific role in combat. Groot acts as your support, he can heal the team and root enemies in place with his branches for crowd control, and his ultimate move will instantly revive you if it's active when you die. Rocket is your AoE specialist, lobbing grenades and explosives to wipe out groups. His ultimate is a massive cannon that unloads a huge amount of firepower for massive damage. Drax plays the tank, dishing out heavy damage and staggering tougher enemies. His ultimate will do heavy damage to one enemy while doing stagger damage to the ones around him. And Gamora is your high damage, single target assassin, perfect for melting down stronger foes by filling their stagger bar. And her ultimate does heavy damage to one enemy by striking them multiple times. When staggered, tankier foes lose their resistances, their defense goes down, and they're open to counters that will do heavy damage. The Guardians of the Galaxy can also interact with the environment when prompted, like having Gamora cut down an object on top of foes, or having Drax toss an explosive barrel or rock, adding some variety to how you approach each fight. There's actually some nice synergy between the Guardians' abilities if you take the time to coordinate, like having Groot pin a group of enemies in place with his roots, then following up with one of Rocket's big AoE explosions to wipe them all out. Mixing and matching the right abilities instead of just spamming the strongest ones goes a long way to making fights more efficient.
Guys, huddle up!
It feels like they're everywhere, laughing at us.
And yet, we cannot retreat.
No one wants to retreat, big guy, but I gotta say, it's fucking scary out there, Quill.
Finally, there's the huddle mechanic. During combat, a pink meter down in the right hand corner will begin to fill as you shift through your different special abilities, and once full, you can trigger a huddle to pause the action to rally the team. Pick the right dialogue option based on their mood and banter, and you'll give the whole squad a buff, boosting their attack power, and drastically reducing ability cooldowns. Whether you win or lose the pep talk, Peter will always get pumped, and fires up a random song from his Walkman to hype up the rest of the fight. It's a cool idea at first, and a great excuse to blast some 80s music mid-battle, but it doesn't take long before the huddle mechanic starts to wear out its welcome. It gets repetitive, interrupts the flow of combat, breaks momentum, and by the second half of the game I was actively avoiding it, and I'd always end up annoyed every time I accidentally used it. While the buff it gives is useful, the game's low difficulty makes the huddle feel unnecessary. Combat in Guardians is definitely flashy and fun, especially early on. There's a decent variety of enemy types, and unlocking new moves helps keep things fresh for a while, but even with all that, the formula starts to wear thin by the halfway point. And without the ability to actually play as the other Guardians for some combat variety, the action just doesn't evolve much beyond what you're already doing with Peter. There's a solid foundation here, the core of the combat works, and the synergy between characters has potential, but in a theoretical sequel, giving players the ability to switch between the full team and lean into their unique combat styles could take things to a next level, and help the gameplay stay just as strong as the story all the way through. Since combat doesn't evolve much outside of some boss fights and unique encounters, the rest of this video will mostly stay focused on the story. Exploring the mining rig is fairly uneventful at first. Outside of encounters with the local alien wildlife, not much happens while setting up the first couple of thumpers. You'll spend most of that time competing with the Rocket on who can destroy the most clusters of space barnacles. The competition comes to an end when something very unexpected drops from one of those clusters, an Infinity Stone.
Quill, you okay?
Yeah, it's just... Man.
Well, that's concerning.
Well, whatever that thing was, it's probably not good. Oh yeah, despite the gem being the same color of the MCU Mind Stone, it's later confirmed it's actually the Soul Stone. It's also way more useful in terms of power compared to the MCU version too. Like, outside of needing it for the Infinity Gauntlet, did the MCU Soul Stone actually do anything? In exchange for Thanos killing Gamora? Or Hawkeye killing Black Widow? I know what it's meant to do, but I don't remember its power actually being used before the snap. Or after. Well, whatever, I'm not going to harp on that. As for why the Soul Stone was just randomly here, we'll get back to that later. After some more exploration, Team Rocket and Team Green reunite to activate the Thumpers. Unfortunately, it didn't lure the monster they were looking for, just a space llama. Actually, never mind, the Thumpers did work after all. Cue a boss fight against the Akanti.
Alright. Enough with the warm-up. Time to catch us a real monster. Let's get paid.
Or not. Welp, looks like this whole job was a waste of time. Time to get out of here before that evil space polygon thing devours the team too. Hopping into the Milano, we're thrown into a fairly simple flying section escaping the collapsing rig. It's nothing special really, but I ran by a flock of seagulls plays during this segment, and it just had me craving to play some Vice City. Anywho, the Guardians of the Galaxy narrowly avoid destruction and escape the security grid around the QZ, just before it resets. Their streak of bad luck continues though, as they're immediately apprehended by the Nova Corps. Even worse, the space frigate that intercepts them, Hala's Hope, is run by Peter's old flame from 12 years ago, Centurion Carell.
Peter Jason Quill.
Really? My middle name? Hey, Carell! How you doing? How long's it been? 2-3 years? You look good. You been tanning?
This is a new low, Peter, even for you.
Carell, I swear it's not what it looks like.
That you're a junker trespassing in the most restricted area of space, who consorts with thieves and murderers, apparently.
Hey, killing people for money ain't murder, lady.
Come on, Carell. You know me. We've been to hell and back. Sure, I've done some shady stuff since the war, like really shady stuff. But junking?
I just caught you pink-handed, leaving the quarantine zone.
Technically, yes, but we weren't scavenging.
Right.
Peter Quill, I found these items in the space that you told me about. There was not enough room for both the other thing and these.
Peter Quill, of planet C-53, under Galactic Law ZXB-47, I am putting you and your crew under arrest for
Actually, can I call you back?
What?
So when Guardians of the Galaxy introduced its choice system, I kinda expected it to be superficial, with just different dialogue playing out, kinda like Telltale's The Walking Dead series. And while that is mostly what happens, there are some important choices that change how things play out throughout the story. For example, the choice presented here on whether to hide the Space Llama, or Rocket's box of illegal tech. Regardless of which one you choose, the gang has to pay a fine within 3 cycles, or the Nova Corps will disable their ship and rearrest them. Hide the llama and the fine is 7,000 units. Hide the illegal tech and it's 8,000. Choose to hide neither one and the fine is...
It's over 9,000!
Paying the fine is its own ordeal, as you can easily screw up having enough units depending on what you do in future chapters, but there's a bigger outcome to the choice. Hiding the Space Llama makes it far more useful in helping you in a later chapter, while hiding the illegal tech will upgrade the Milano and power it up for a future spaceship battle. Your experience playing the game isn't going to radically change, but your choices do feel like they make a difference, and it does add a teeny bit of replay value. There's a few more important choices you'll encounter, but I'll bring them up when we reach them in the story. For this run, I chose to hide Rocket's illegal tech. We're then immediately taken into custody by the Nova Corps, and brought onto their ship.
Cadet Gold, what are you doing here?
Oh, you don't know? Really? It says right here. Prisoner processing training. I'm your official trainee.
Aren't you a little young for the Corps?
Aren't you a little old for that hairdo?
Got him!
After the corpsman reads the crew the Miranda rights, their processing is interrupted by Cadet Nikki Gold, a Nova Corps trainee and Carell's 12-year-old daughter. She weasels her way into escorting the Guardians to her mom. Marching through the hangar, the Nova Corps are dealing with another person who was snooping around the quarantine zone, Grand Unifier Raker, the former leader of the Universal Church of Truth, a cult that rose up and fizzled out during the Galactic War. The old man claims he was searching for God in the QZ, but before we learn more about him, his ship suddenly explodes and knocks Nikki over a guardrail. Peter jumps down to save her, and the rest of the chapter is the pair working together to make it back topside. Despite coming off a bit bratty at first, Nikki softens up a lot during this section. She doesn't admit it, but it's obvious she's lonely on the ship. With no other kids around, Nikki's only friends are service drones she's painted up and named. She also slowly starts to bond with Peter, partially because they both agree that her mom Corell is super bossy, but because Peter doesn't treat her like a dumb kid. He respects Nikki's ability to get around the ship on her own, her skills in hacking the ship's systems, and he praises all the work she's done in making her secret hideout. While I doubt anyone on the ship is outright mean to Nikki, you can tell Peter's probably one of the few adults who's given her some real positive reassurance. You really see it when the pair bump into Corell and right up to her quarters. Assuming you make the right dialogue choices, Nikki's opinion of Peter takes a full 180, and she becomes defensive of him when her mom is being rude to him. She even gives him her keycard to get around the ship later in the game. This whole scene in the elevator kinda comes off like a divorced couple arguing over how to raise their daughter, which is fitting because Peter might actually be Nikki's biological father.
Chewie. I can't believe you still have them. Can't believe you survived. Mercury's what, like 1,000 degrees?
More like 1,000 cycles ago. You can keep him if you want. He is yours.
Hey, I ordered him to look out for you. Expect him to keep doing his job. Especially, you now have a daughter, apparently. A 12-year-old daughter who you didn't have during the war. 12 years ago when we...
Peter.
While it's not confirmed here, an increasing amount of evidence throughout the story heavily hints that Peter really is Nikki's dad. I'll circle back to my thoughts about it later, as a core part of the story ends up being about the relationship between the two, and Peter maturing to be a good father. His growth also helps him let go of the baggage he carries about his mom's death too. After talking to Corell, Peter tells the rest of the team they've got 3 cycles, which I think is 3 days, to shore up 8,000 units to pay their fine or get arrested again. The others aren't as optimistic as he is though, since 8,000 units is apparently a lot of money, and 3 days isn't enough to shore up that much unless they rob a bank. Still, Peter is sure they'll figure something out, and asks everyone to pool their funds and start brainstorming ideas to earn the rest of the units. Before we get into their latest scheme, now's a good time as ever to discuss the rest of the Guardians of the Galaxy. First up is Drax the Destroyer. Drax shares a lot with his MCU counterpart. He talks like he swallowed a thesaurus, takes everything literally, and completely misses sarcasm. Their backstories are also similar, both driven by the loss of their families, but where the movie version slowly turned into comic relief, the Drax we get here has a lot more depth. During the Galactic War, Thanos' forces wiped out his home planet, Katoth, killing his wife Hovat and daughter Chimeria. Drax joined the Resistance, swore revenge, and eventually fought Thanos himself. According to Drax and some others who were present, their battle lasted days before he finally killed him, a turning point that allowed the Kree and Resistance to take down Chitauri Prime. He became a war hero, though he's never been fully convinced he actually finished off Thanos. There was never proof Thanos was actually dead. He's the classic warrior archetype, stoic, blunt, and dead serious about honor. He's all about charging into battle, dying with purpose, and holding tightly to the traditions of his people. But beneath the intensity, there's real pain. He mourns his family deeply and finds meaning in sharing Katanthian beliefs with the others. At first, he only trusts Peter, and even then he sees him as kind of incompetent. But over time, Drax begins to soften. He doesn't say it outright, but his respect for the team grows. He even offers Peter genuine support when the group starts to believe Nikki might be his daughter, showing that Drax, in his own way, cares more than he lets on. Next is Gamora, the deadliest woman in the galaxy. Right away, she's noticeably more mellow than her MCU counterpart. Still dangerous, still sharp as hell, but this version is more emotionally grounded and less guarded than we're used to. Her backstory hits the familiar beats. Adopted by Thanos, trained to be an assassin, and one of his most loyal killers during the Galactic War. That changed the day she found him talking to death itself. Not metaphorically, literally. She realized he wasn't fighting for peace. He was in love with death, and he'd kill anyone to prove it. That's when she defected to the Resistance. Gamora is usually all business, pragmatic, focused, and not the type to wear her heart on her sleeve. Even Peter and Rocket admit she kinda scares them. But she's not cold. She joins in on the banter, drops sarcastic one-liners, and quietly spends time with the team, even if she pretends she's above it. Beneath all that, though, she's still working through years of trauma. Thanos stripped her of agency, turned her emotions into weaknesses, and made her question every act of kindness. She meditates to cope, but trust doesn't come easy. That said, Gamora wants to be better. She honors Nebula's memory by collecting dolls, and fiercely protects anyone she sees as vulnerable, and especially young girls who remind her of who she used to be. It's not just redemption she's after, she's fighting to never become the person Thanos tried to turn her into. Now let's talk about Rocket, who's probably the closest to his MCU counterpart out of the whole crew. He's still the foul-mouthed, trigger-happy raccoon you'd expect, sarcastic, cynical, always ready with a snarky comment, but this version adds a bit more emotional depth, even if he buries it under layers of attitude. His backstory is rough. Kree scientists on Half-World experimented on him, turning him into a weapon. That trauma shaped everything. His fear of water, his hatred of being called an animal, and his obsession with fixing things just to feel in control. He's never letting anyone have power over him again. But beneath all that anger, Rocket is surprisingly smart. Easily the most brilliant one on the team when it comes to tech, and fiercely protected of the Milano, which he treats like his baby even though it's technically Peter's ship. Then there's Groot, his best friend. Their bond is one of the most genuine, heartwarming parts of the game. That said, Rocket can be a real asshole. He's selfish, dismissive of the team's feelings, and constantly throws out cruel comments when others open up. Worse, he's hypocritical. He's quick to take offense but rarely stops to think about what he says to others. He always has to win the argument, even if it means hurting someone who doesn't deserve it. Rocket does mellow out a bit towards the end, but it still feels like no one really calls him out for how he acts. It's frustrating at times, especially considering how often he pushes the rest of the team away. And finally, there's Groot. What can I say? He is Groot. Since he only speaks 3 words, and Rocket is the only one who can actually understand him, most of what we learn about Groot comes through others. Rocket tells us he's the last of his kind, a survivor of a planet that was wiped out, and that the two of them have been inseparable ever since Rocket accidentally stole him. They've been bounty hunting together ever since. Even without understanding his words, it's easy to read Groot. Whether he's being playful, protective, or just vibing with some weird alien critter, his emotions come through loud and clear. Honestly, he's probably the most emotionally grounded one on the team. Groot's sweet, selfless, and always trying to keep the peace. He rarely holds a grudge, and even when he does get angry, he's quick to forgive. He mostly follows Rocket's lead, but you can tell he sees through his friend's rough edges, and tries in his own way to keep Rocket from going too far. Overall, I like this take on the Guardians of the Galaxy. It helps that this game isn't an origin story for the group, and we skip the growing pains of them learning to work together. They're all fairly likable, avoiding feeling shallow, and their banter with each other can actually be pretty funny at times. Though I do feel like they banter way too much, as when the entire group is together during a level, they just never shut up, and have to comment on every little thing you do. So it can be annoying sometimes when someone asks where Peter is going, when you're just trying to explore the level for collectibles, or if you take 5 seconds to figure out a puzzle and they have to point it out to you. It's exactly like Atreus.
37 units?
We appear to be 7,963 units short. If we intend to keep our ship, Peter Quill...
I know. We clearly need a plan.
And reconsider my initial proposal.
Oh, no, not Fin Fang Foom again.
Yes, we should go after Fin Fang Foom.
Drax, there are easier ways to get paid. Like, what about selling Gamora's crap?
What?
Oh, come on. You've been hoarding them stupid knickknacks ever since you first joined us. I mean, don't tell me they ain't worth nothing.
Quarantine zone was always there.
Holding out on
My
us, Quill.
figurines are not knickknacks.
Team's in trouble. Then you can't be bothered to make no sacrifice.
For the Mocking
I will
Star
sacrifice
system.
your head.
Moving on, after everyone scrounges around the ship for spare change, the Guardians are painfully short of the 8,000 units needed to pay the fine. After some debate, Groot offers a solution. They try their luck with Lady Hellbender again by selling Groot to her. Since he's the last of his race and kinda monstrous, Lady Hellbender might actually pay well for him. Rocket is against the idea, as is Drax, who doesn't think the Monster Queen would be interested, since Groot is too docile. Drax thinks Rocket is a better choice. Despite his size and demeanor, he's more ferocious and violent. Rocket agrees with Drax, and it's up to you to decide who to sell. The team will bust out whoever you sell, so there's not much of a moral dilemma. So I went with Rocket. With that sorted out, the crew flies off to Secnarf 9, homeworld of Lady Hellbender. After a long, treacherous journey through the harsh jungle of the planet, along with several encounters with the local wildlife, the Guardians reach Lady Hellbender's fortress. And as they quickly find out, Their original plan of capturing a space whale to sell to her was ultimately pointless, as she's already got dozens of them. Oof. After a quick flashback that reveals a tiny bit more of what happened on Peter's 13th birthday, we'll finally come face to face with the Monster Queen. Oh, and I know I'm pretty terrible about this, but here's your spoiler warning, as I'm basically going to reveal every major twist that pops up throughout the rest of the game. Since this game's strongest aspect is its story, if you want to experience it yourself, hop off the video now or skip all the way to the outro.
Speak.
Hey there, I'm Star-Lord. Okay.
Drax the Destroyer. The undoing of the Mad Titan in the flesh. And such flesh. Your presence honors me.
You are much smaller than I expected.
Oh? And what were you expecting? Perhaps I can do something about it.
But unlikely.
We'll see, Destroyer. I can be quite forceful.
Peter Quill. I believe she is flirting with me.
Damn, wasn't expecting Lady Hellbender to be a muscle mommy. It's funny, before meeting her in person, the way Drax talked up Lady Hellbender made it sound like he really had a thing for her. The others even point out as much. But now, nada. He just ain't about it. In retrospect, I think he was just enamored by the legends about her and her strength as a warrior. So he probably expected some intense, bloodthirsty warrior woman boasting about her strength, as opposed to a hot blue Amazon fiending for his flesh. Still would though. Who you choose to sell changes how things go with Lady Hellbender, but either way it ends with her pissed off and unleashing one of her monsters on you. If you go with Groot, she actually agrees to buy him for the full price Peter asks. The Guardians then sneak back into the fortress to bust him out, avoiding any fights until the Monster Queen catches on. If you go with Rocket, things go sideways fast. Hellbender isn't interested and sees right through the Guardian's bluff about the Collector wanting to buy him. After some snarky back and forth, she calls Rocket worthless, and he loses it, shooting up the place and blowing the whole deal. That route turns into a full-on firefight as you blast your way through the fortress, and eventually raid Lady Hellbender's treasure vault to get the credit you came for. It all leads to the game's first real boss fight against her pet, a massive tentacled squid monster called the Dweller in Darkness.
Guardians of the Galaxy, how many times do I have to kill you?
Stall her, Peter.
The audacity that you thought you could rob me!
For the record, we weren't all on board with the plan.
Thanks, Quill. Why not sell the clothes right off my back?
Do you know what I did to the last people who thought I was easy prey?
You let him go?
I got nothing. We're trapped.
Lady Hellbender, let us settle this honorably. I will face you in combat.
Honorably? Your offer is worthless, Destroyer. There is no escaping my wrath!
I can work with that.
Dweller! Feast upon them!
It's a pretty solid boss fight. The Dweller is tanky, and you can't damage it until you build up its stagger meter. Even then, it tries to heal using pools of goop around the arena, so you'll need to use ice shops to freeze the goop, and its tentacles, so Gamora can slice them off. You'll need to take out all of its tentacles in order to win. To keep things from getting too repetitive, Lady Hellbender summons smaller monsters mid-fight, and the Dweller gets more aggressive as the fight goes on, mixing in new attacks. It's not the most complex boss ever, but it does a good job of pushing you to use everything the combat system has taught you up to that point. My only gripe is your teammates won't shut up during the fight. They constantly shout what you're supposed to do next. Like, come on guys, give me a second to figure it out myself. After defeating the Dweller and ending up on Lady Hellbender's shit list, the Guardians escape off the planet 12,000 credits richer. more than enough to pay off that pesky fine. While they've basically replaced one problem with a much worse one, Peter takes it as a win, and calls up Corell to pay the fine, though he's unable to reach her. Instead, the only response he gets is a very garbled message from a panicked Nikki. Something might have happened to her mom. With no choice but to pay the fine in person, the crew track Nikki's transmission to the Nova Rock, an outpost for the Nova Corps. While most of these outposts are heavily automated, the Nova Rock is suspiciously empty considering Corell's ship is docked there. They only find this one guy in a cell. I thought he was just some random criminal, but apparently he's Jack Flag, a hero from Earth who's worked with Captain America. I'd say more, but I'm not really familiar with him at all, or what comic stories he shows up in. Jack Flag doesn't offer much info on what happened to the outpost, only that he heard some kind of commotion take place and people talking about some mother. Still, it's something, and he doesn't seem like such a bad guy. So when he asked, I set Jack Flag free.
I know something, Hank. What did you do? Hey, where am I going? What's happening?
Oh, I'm sure he'll be fine. Oh. Whoops. Moving on, after exploring the ship some more, we finally find some of the Nova Corps. Except they're acting kinda weird, have a strange purple glow around their heads, and tell the team to have faith so many times when meeting them, you think you were talking to Dutch Vanderlyn.
Have some goddamn faith!
Whatever the hell is up with the Nova Corps, the team has no choice but to defend themselves when those loonies attack. Somehow, I don't think Peter will be able to negotiate just paying a fine again after killing so many space cops. Fighting more Nova Corps and sneaking around, the gang spot a bunch of people kneeling and praying before a strange monolith that's sucking something out of them. Life energy, or spirit energy maybe? It's not really made clear, and it doesn't look like it's actually hurting these people. We unfortunately don't figure out what the hell is happening, and the best we can piece together is that Grand Unifier Raker, that cult guy who popped up briefly in Chapter 2, is somehow involved. Also, Hallis Hope undocks and leaves the outpost before Peter can find out what happened to Corell or Nikki. Also, this whole little adventure fractures the team, as Rocket wanted to bail the second they found those crazy Nova Corps guys, and he grows increasingly frustrated with Peter for getting more involved, to the point that he and Groot temporarily quit the team at the beginning of the next chapter. And man, this is really where I started to dislike Rocket, as he's essentially throwing a temper tantrum. His logic is that since they're all mercenaries/criminals, they shouldn't be getting involved with whatever the hell is going on with the Nova Corps since it's not their problem. Which, you know, fair. Not everyone is a bleeding heart out to save the universe. But Rocket goes a step further and gives Peter shit for worrying about his cop ex-girlfriend. It comes off less like some rule of outlaws, we can't trust the law type of trope, and more like Rocket is jealous of Corell. Peter doesn't even argue back and downplays that it's not about Corell, and just about making sure the fine is paid. Like, dude, you're a grown man. If you're worried about your ex, just say that and put Rocket in his place. Peter, along with the rest of the team for that matter, walk on pins and needles trying not to upset Rocket, and it just doesn't feel justified. I want to lay into Rocket more, but I'll come back to this later when he does more shitty stuff. The others are pretty indifferent to what's happening, and just go along with Rocket since they don't have a way to follow Hallis Hope. Back on the Milano, the team twiddle their thumbs on what to do next. Drax and Gamora think they should all mellow out and get shit-faced somewhere, while Peter thinks they should head to nowhere to kill two birds with one stone. First, to report what they saw on the rock to Cosmo, Nowhere's head of security, who can pass on the information to the right people, and second, to find Rocket's contact who can remove the Nova Corps tracker from the ship. Despite the fact we're doing what he wants, Rocket is still pissy since Peter is still trying to do the right thing. So he and Groot ditch the others when they land on Nowhere. Don't let it get to you, Peter. Let that big baby go cry himself a river somewhere. He'll be back. Hey look, it's Pink Alien Jesus.
Nexus, what are you...
Do you still have those suicidal urges?
What? No?
Huh. And you thought joining a team would be bad for you. Hi. Sunlord, right? Is it Rockstar?
It's Star-Lord.
Hey, that's right. I forget which version of you I've met. Did you do the thing yet?
What is the thing she is referring to?
No idea.
Hi. I don't know if we've met yet. I'm...
No. It's not... No, he's lying! I mean...
Where the Kotati take root, the broken promise of all will be mended.
You know, I never had much of an opinion of the MCU version of Mantis. I knew nothing about her comic counterpart. She was always just there after her introduction in the second movie, you know? Outside of being a punching bag for Drax's jokes about her appearance, her meek personality gets drowned out by the louder personas of the other Guardians. Though she kinda grew on me after the Guardians Christmas special, where she gets the spotlight and it's revealed she's Peter's half-sister. While leaning closer to her comics counterpart, who was human apparently, this version of Mantis does her own thing and stands out a lot. She's some weird mix of a granola girl hippie and Dr. Manhattan from Watchmen. Worshipped as the celestial Madonna by a pacifist sect of the Kree, Mantis can see all potential timelines all at once. While she can see into the future, it's not as useful or reliable as you'd expect, since she's not sure which future is how things will play out for the present timeline. Still, Mantis is surprisingly fun to be around, and helps most of the team work out their issues. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Running around nowhere some more, we'll bump into Groot and that big baby Rocket in a bar. Peter wants to talk and work out their issues, you know, like adults, but that selfish raccoon won't even try. Before Peter can waste his time trying to win him over, their little spat is interrupted by the greatest character in the game, Lipless.
I know that blonde mop anywhere. Eat that queer.
Actually, maybe we can stick around for a bit.
Last time I see you, you was running away from under the act. With your britches off and done.
Get ready for a fight.
I'm always ready.
What the? I don't know what's going on here, but I thought we was friends, Eta. Or did you forget about me?
What? What? No, no. Man, who could forget a face like that? This is great. This is bad. This is really bad.
Remember, Eta, you and me, Starlighters, together till the end.
No, for real, I fucking love this guy. He says he used to do jobs with Peter and that the two of them made an unbreakable blood oath. Everything Lipless says about Peter, like his Casanova antics, his name, and reciting the lyrics to a metal song called Storm Riders that was playing when they made their blood oath, suggests they really do know each other. So unless Jack Flag's real name was actually Peter, I'm surprised our Peter doesn't remember this guy. This meeting with them is pretty inconsequential if I'm being honest. You just have to guess the correct lyrics to Storm Riders as Lipless is singing. Guess enough right, he's convinced Peter remembers him, and they'll be best buddies again. Before he dips, he gives Peter a free ticket to the Collector's Emporium, a museum showing off all the rare shit the Collector's bought. And then he just vanishes from the plot. Gets the lyrics wrong and he swears revenge on Peter for forgetting them. Then he just vanishes from the plot. If he does end up hating you, you can find his corpse much later when shit goes down on Nowhere. But otherwise, yeah, reuniting with Lipless doesn't amount to anything. According to the devs, he was a remnant from a proof of concept they had to make when development began on the game. Peter was on a mission to rescue a kid as in a baby goat, from a group of poachers, which ended in a sing-off at a bar against Lipless, who was one of the poachers. They wanted to keep the scene since it helped with their writing, but the only place where it fit in organically was here on Nowhere. Still, I'm bummed they didn't do more with him. Would have been spectacular if he came out of nowhere, hours after you forgot about him, in order to save Peter's ass at the last second. Kinda like Steve Buscemi popping up near the end of Billy Madison.
Man, I'm glad I called that guy.
After our reunion with Lipless, the rest of the team ditches Peter to do whatever. While we could head straight to Cosmos' tower, I decided to do a little sightseeing. Not every day you get to visit the decapitated head of a Celestial. First, I bump into this guy who's willing to sell me a disabler to get rid of that pesky Nova Corps tracker. Well, he seems like a pretty trustworthy guy, and at only 1,500 units, it's a total steal. Next, we put that free ticket from Lipless to good use and visit the Collector's Emporium. It's just a showcase of knickknacks and iconic items from the Marvel Universe. There's Throg, Frog of Thunder, his own little Mjolnir, the Eye of a Watcher, and for some reason a chair that used to belong to Jonathan Majors. Leaving the Emporium, Peter decides to buy a doll for Gamora from the gift shop. I forgot to bring this up, but occasionally you'll find collectibles that Peter will give to one of the others, unlocking optional conversations where they talk more about themselves. Alright, that's enough sightseeing. After Peter gets robbed by a bunch of kids, he'll make his way over to Cosmos' tower. Unfortunately, he doesn't make it to the front door, as he's confronted by a pair of bounty hunters working for Lady Hellbender.
Look at what we got here. Watch it, Star-Lord. And what's a filthy, scut-stained Terran doing out here, Rawson? Hiding's what I think, Garrick. Terrans always be hiding. 'Cause everybody knows Terrans are scrawny. And good for eating. If you're into that, we might be into that. Except for the bounty.
Hey, guys! Wouldn't happen to know where Cosmo's office is, would you? I get the distinct feeling that you're looking for someone of the Earth persuasion. I get it, man. I get it. Us Earthers, we all look the same. It's not like you guys who very clearly look different.
Get to the point, Terran.
The point is I can help you find who you're actually looking for.
Terrans do all look the same. Except this Terran's got a word on his back. Just like the bounty says. What's that word on your back say?
I heart nowhere?
Or maybe it says Star-Lord. Either way. Get him!
Cue another boss battle. Peter can't actually damage the Blood Brothers at first, not until Gamora and Drax arrive to help him. The main gimmick of the fight is that the brothers' armor only works when they're next to each other, for some reason, so you have to lead one away from the other in order to hurt them. Nothing mind-boggling, but it keeps it from being a generic fight. Though you don't actually beat them, as the fight gets interrupted when everyone is knocked out by a strong psychic wave. While unconscious, Peter dreams of his 13th birthday again. His mom will give him a gift from his father, and it's the element guns. She explains that Peter's father, Jason, was an alien and king of Spartax. He was a great leader of his people who was forced to leave Meredith and Peter to protect them. And while it's worked out, Peter's mom senses that something is coming, and her son needs to be ready for it. Peter thinks his mom is just playing a game at first, but after he activates the element guns, and several Chitauri ships arrive, he realizes it's all true. Peter rushes outside to help his mom, but even with his element guns, he can't do a thing to stop the Chitauri or save his mom.
Please, no!
When Peter comes to, he finds himself, Drax, Gamora, and the Blood Brothers all in separate holding cells. Oh, and Rocket and Groot are here too. Though it turns out this is just a psychic vision, and they're actually sitting in Cosmos' office. Cosmo is a Soviet space dog that gains psychic abilities from being exposed to cosmic radiation. After a failed USSR experiment caused him to drift through space, he eventually ended up in nowhere and became its chief of security. He's a bit pissed at the Guardians of the Galaxy, as he caught Rocket and Groot trying to sneak into the tower to use his teleporter, the Continuum Cortex, and thinks the others were creating a distraction by fighting with the Blood Brothers. Peter manages to de-escalate the situation, and Cosmo drops the issue after hearing the Guardians were on the Nova Rock. Communist Space Doggo explains that a strange transmission has been spreading across the galaxy, and all the teams he sent to investigate it never returned. The team explains everything they saw, the cult-like behavior of the Nova Corps, and how they brought up something called the Promise, pulling up some info on various cults. Due to his earlier suspicions, Peter thinks it might be the work of the Church of Universal Truths, since their leader, Grand Unifier Raker, was on the Hallis Hope. Cosmo's not convinced though, as the Church pretty much collapsed when their Golden God died. Seizing the opportunity, Peter volunteers the Guardians to investigate what's going on for Cosmo, in exchange for him using his connections to get the fine and charges from the Nova Corps dropped. Cosmo can't promise he can get it done, as things are screwy with the Corps at the moment, but he does let Peter and the others go investigate Hallis Hope, though he holds onto the Milano as collateral in case they try to double-cross him. Since they can't fly out in their ship, Cosmo will send them directly to Hallis Hope using the Continuum Cortex. I'm not quite sure what it is or how it functions, but he sends them off in a giant ethereal hand that transports the crew to some trippy dimension. According to Rocket, it exists in between realities, and could even take them to different points in time. Our trip through it is brief, but we hear some echoes from heroes on Earth like Captain America and the Hulk, along with an echo from the past, or alternate reality, of Thanos praising Gamora. Makes me wonder if this game had gotten a sequel, if the devs were going to build up towards a battle with Thanos. Hopefully it'd be its own thing, and not just a retread of Infinity War. Oh well, guess we'll never know. Passing through a portal, the Guardians pop up in the hull of the Hollis Hope. After moving through the ship and fighting the brainwashed Nova Corps, the Guardians discover a giant machine siphoning energon from the planet below. Okay, it's actually called Faith Energy, but that hasn't been revealed yet, and the way it's stored in these cubes, all I can think of is energon from Transformers. As the Guardians explore the ship some more, they stumble into Nikki's secret hideout, but she's nowhere to be found. What they do find is her terminal, and it turns out the kid's been doing the math. She suspects Peter might be her dad, not just because the timeline adds up, but because she's clearly only half Kree, something Ko-Rel has apparently been hiding from the rest of the Kree Empire, especially the Kree accusers. Side note, the Kree Empire is insanely racist. They're obsessed with racial purity, and it's literally against the law for Kree to interbreed with other alien species. So even if it's not 100% confirmed, Peter and the others take it as fact. Nikki's his daughter, and that poor girl needs her daddy more than ever right now. Because at the end of this chapter, the Guardians come across a video of Ko-Rel entering the quarantine zone, only to be attacked by that weird shadowy polygon monster Peter and Rocket accidentally let loose from the Soul Stone earlier. And Nikki, she was there too, and she blames herself for everything that happened. Before the team can fully process what's going on, Grand Unifier Raker crashes the party, with 2 massive robots in tow. He claims he can show them the truth they've been seeking, by taking them to meet the Matriarch. The Guardians don't get much say in the matter. The Universal Church of Truth's giant space station locks down Hollis Hope, making escape impossible. And to make things worse, Cosmo's not responding to their calls, so there's no way to beam out. The Guardians are forced to follow Raker through the towering halls of the church's station. Along the way, he explains that the church worships a new god, the Matriarch, who has made the promise, a vow to return everyone's lost loved ones. Raker insists that the followers aren't brainwashed, since they have to willingly accept the promise. What he conveniently leaves out is that non-believers are executed, like we saw earlier when the brainwashed Nova Corps gunned down their own people. And as we'll find out, once you accept the promise, getting out isn't exactly easy. As he leads the group deeper into the station, Raker rambles on about faith energy, miracles, and the power of belief. Just your usual cult nonsense. While he's monologuing, Rocket takes the opportunity to hack Raker's floating gold Rubik's Cube, and it's up to the rest of the team to keep the old man distracted long enough for him to finish the job. Eventually, we're granted an audience with the all-powerful Matriarch, who's apparently been dying to meet the Guardians, especially Peter.
My lady, as requested, the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Thank you, Grand Unifier. Guardians, you may approach.
Peter Quill, order your offspring to come down from there this instant.
Maybe I'm out of line, but aren't you a little young for a dress that short?
Aren't you a little old to write your name on your clothes? Took you long enough.
Yeah, well, you know how chatty Grandpa gets.
Yep, the Matriarch is Nikki. At first it looks like she's still herself, just dressed like a golden space pope, but it quickly becomes clear she's drunk the Kool-Aid. Her grief over Ko-Rel's death made her cling to the first thing that promised to undo it, and unlike the rest of the followers, Nikki wasn't manipulated into thinking she's a goddess. Raker genuinely believes she is. That's because Nikki is now wielding the Soul Stone, and its power has convinced Raker, and everyone in the church, that she can actually deliver on the promise. And Nikki is all too eager to prove to her dad, and his friends, why they should believe too. In a flash of white light, Peter wakes up back on Earth. It's the day his mom died. The day he was kidnapped by the Chitauri. But this time, he's an adult. He's strong enough to fight them off and save her. Meredith thanks him, proud of the man he's become, and promises everything will be better now. All his friends even have a place here on their farm. This is the true danger of the promise. It's not just about reviving lost loved ones, it's the way it twists you into thinking you're the only one who can bring them back. That illusion of responsibility becomes the hook. It turns grief into purpose, and that purpose into devotion. That's how the promise converts people. It's not just faith, it's manipulation through guilt and hope. And the only way to break free is to make the agonizing choice to watch your loved ones die again. Worse, you have to be the one to kill them.
I can't believe I have...
Seriously, Mom. Stop hugging me.
Peter. It's okay. It's me. Peter, what are you doing?
I'm sorry.
This isn't funny. Put that down, young man. I told you to put it down. I don't understand. I love you, Peter. What did I do? Please. Please. Oh, please, son, I don't want to die. I'm sorry. Oh, whatever it is, I am so sorry.
Now, Peter. While it's distracted, we can reach Nikki. She needs our help.
For a moment, it looks like Peter snaps out of it, but instead he wakes up back on Hallis Hope with Nikki, who's calling him Dad now, and asks for help finishing a surprise party for her mom. Still dazed, Peter plays along until Corell walks in. She's not an illusion. Not exactly. Corell did die protecting Nikki from the shadow creature, but when Nikki came into contact with the Soul Stone, part of Corell's soul became entangled with hers. What we're seeing now is a twisted echo of what's left, being used by the monster inside the stone to keep Nikki trapped. Corell begs Peter to save her daughter. The faith energy the church is collecting won't bring anyone back. It's just fuel for the creature's endless hunger. The only way to free Nikki is to help her accept the truth. Her mom is gone and nothing is bringing her back. Peter then wakes up for real this time. The experience has also left Nikki a bit shaken, showing signs of doubt, but before he can help her break free completely, she's taken away. The Guardians are immediately attacked by Raker and his fanatics, but with all the faith energy flowing through the station, the cultists are virtually unstoppable. So the team's forced to retreat. Rocket hacks the ship's comms to call in the Milano, and if he chose to trust her, Gamora stays behind to go after Raker. The rest barely make it out alive, and would have ended up frozen space popsicles if the Milano hadn't shown up just in time. Back on the ship, licking their wounds, at least one thing becomes clear. Trusting Gamora was the right call. She returns, alive and well, with Raker's arm as a souvenir. Unfortunately, she didn't finish him, and she couldn't save Nikki either. And while all the Guardians rejected the promise, the experience hit Drax especially hard. He's always blamed himself for losing his wife and daughter to Thanos, and because he isn't sure he actually killed Thanos, he believes their souls will never find peace. The promise spoke to that guilt more than anything else, but even though he was tempted, Drax held strong. The crew finally manages to get through to Cosmo, but the communist K9 doesn't have good news. The Universal Church of Truth has made it to nowhere, and is tearing through the security forces. Before the signal cuts out, Cosmo tells Peter to head to New Xandar, and contact the World Mind, the Nova Corps' central supercomputer, and ask it for help in stopping the church. But before they can do that, they're interrupted by yet another of Lady Hellbender's hired guns. This time a guy going by the name of Captain Glory, leading a crew of mercs called the Lethal Legion. Not gonna spend too long on this part. It's a space dogfight. You take control of the Milano and blast Captain Glory's ship out of existence. If you chose to hide Rocket's tech back in an earlier chapter, you'll get access to homing missiles, which makes the whole thing a lot easier. Either way, by the end of it, Glory and his crew are nothing but floating space dust. After the skirmish, the Guardians arrive just outside New Xandar, and what they find isn't exactly hopeful. Hundreds of refugee ships, packed with people fleeing worlds already consumed by the promise. They're all camped outside the planet, begging for help over open comms. But there's no answer. No orders, no support. The Nova Corps are doing nothing. Peter tries everything he can to get through to someone on the inside, hammering every option he can in the World Mind system, looking for anyone to talk to. But of course, like any good old bloated bureaucracy. They don't answer a damn thing. Until money gets involved. Yeah, the one thing that finally gets a response is trying to pay off the Guardian's fine. Because of course it is.
I can't believe that worked.
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Explain yourselves.
Hey, World Mind, long time no see. It's me, Peter Quill, Star-Lord.
And, it's Guardians of the Galaxy. Check the addendum.
We need your help.
To pay a fine?
No, of course not. You need to save the
galaxy cannot be saved, Peter Quill.
What?
White Diamond from Steven Universe here and the Shattered Nova Corps have turned their backs on the galaxy. The threat of the Universal Church and the Promise is too overwhelming, even for a supercomputer made of thousands of linked minds. It can't make sense of faith energy, can't quantify it, can't counter it, so it's decided the only logical move is to retreat. Peter can try to convince it to help, but unfortunately I failed the persuasion check here. But here's a tip, don't appeal to emotion. The world mind doesn't feel things. It's built on cold, hard reasoning. Unless you speak its language, it won't listen. It tells us the only potential solution it ever came up with was to find the Church's former god, Adam Warlock. Problem is, he's dead, having died in the final year of the Galactic War. And just like that, the world mind pieces out. It bails with what little remains of the Nova Corps, leaving everyone else to fend for themselves. The Universal Church wastes no time. Their massive space station shows up almost instantly and begins siphoning faith energy from the desperate refugee ships. And with the Nova Corps abandoning them, the refugees give in. One by one, they start accepting the Promise. The Guardians manage to escape and find a quiet place to regroup and catch their breath. Things are bleak. They've got no backup, no plan, and no idea on how to stop this thing. Full of doubt, Peter passes out and dreams of his younger self. Kid Peter reminds him not to give up, to pick himself up and fight, that he needs to save Nikki. That little pep talk is enough to light a fire under Peter again. Unfortunately, he wakes up to this.
Peter Quill. Peter Quill, wake up.
Drax. We talked about this, man. You gotta stop.
Your illegitimate child was correct, Peter Quill. Hovat and Cameria will be restored.
Yeah, okay.
We just need to have faith.
Drax's behavior after giving in to the Promise is honestly chilling. What makes it so unnerving is that he doesn't act like a brainwashed cult member. He still talks like Drax, literal, stoic, blunt. But now there's this eerie calmness to him. He doesn't go full zealot or try to kill the team. In fact, he actually thinks Peter will come around too, especially since Nikki is his daughter. And because Drax is still himself under it all, Peter can play along, pretend he's already accepted the Promise to keep things from escalating. It's a smart moment, but honestly, I kinda wish the game leaned into that paranoia more. The fact that people under the Promise glow purple gives it away immediately. It kills the mystery. Imagine how tense it would have been if you didn't know who was being manipulated, if you had to pick up on it through weird behavior, or little inconsistencies. That could have added real weight to the decision-making system. Maybe you trust the wrong person or accuse someone who's actually fine. A bit of a missed opportunity there. But anyways, back to Drax. Even though Peter manages to keep him calm, Teal's Space Kratos isn't totally convinced his friends won't try to stop him. So he takes a precaution and locks everyone in their rooms, while the Milano heads to the Matriarch space station. And this is where that dumb little space llama finally earns her keep. Her name's Cammy, by the way. If you chose to hide her instead of Rocket's tech earlier in the game, she chews through the wiring to Peter's room and sets him free. If you didn't, you get a goofy little minigame where the Guardians sing along to Don't Worry, Be Happy, and you guide Cammy through the ship using their good and their terrible singing. Either way, it works and Peter manages to set the others free. Luckily, the Milano didn't go to the Universal Church's space station, and instead they landed on the planet of Lamentis, home world of the Priests of Palma. Rocket wants to bail instead of searching for Drax, but Peter finally grows a spine and reminds that little shit who the leader is.
Don't make me pull rank on this, man.
Are you pointing your frickin' guns at me?
No, not yet. I just need you to understand how serious this is. We're not leaving.
Well,
Flark, Quill. It's about Kratakin time you showed some Nords. Fine. I'm in.
Any other objections?
Nope. I'm good.
Good. Then let's go find our friend.
While Rocket finally starts to mellow out, more so after the end of this chapter, I still wasn't his biggest fan by the end. Like I said before, he never really apologizes for acting like a piece of shit, and the others are way too forgiving of his antics. Feels like Rocket could have used a humbling moment where he realized he fucked up, and that he does need the others after all. But whatever. After landing on Lamentis, the crew doesn't have to look far to find Drax. They catch up to him just as he's about to kill a random priest of Palma, as he's now totally lost in the promise. All four of the Guardians barely manage to talk him down, and just when it looks like it's time to teach Drax some tough love, Mantis shows up to save the day. And holy shit, Mantis has some moves. She dances circles around Drax, and drops him with some kind of pressure point martial arts thing. Turns out, she's the reason Drax came to Lamentis in the first place. Back on Nowhere, she saw this moment in one of her future visions, and whispered a command into his mind so he'd come here instead of joining the church completely. Riding around on Drax's back while using her powers to keep him calm, Mantis explains the only way to snap him out of the promise is through the power of a creepy, mystical cave on the planet. I'm going to mostly skim through the events here, as it kinda drags, but it's essentially an extended sequence of that scene from Empire Strikes Back. You know, when Luke had to go into that tree to face his greatest fear. The Guardians will fight apparitions of monsters they fought, their fears, and even themselves. Rocket's fear of water is finally explained. It goes back to his time as an experiment. The Kree scientists who created him used to test his limits by trying to drown him over and over again. He's forced to finally confront and overcome that trauma by going into some water in order to save the others from the source creating all these illusions. Gamora also opens up during the cave sequence, revealing that she once came to Lamentis for help herself. After everything with Thanos, she came here to try and process the guilt of killing her sister Nebula, who remained loyal to their father even after his death. Nebula couldn't let go of the past, and Gamora had no choice but to stop her. It's heavy stuff, and it finally gives Gamora some long overdue emotional closure. Finally, we reach the heart of the cave and where we can cure Drax. Oh shit, look out Peter, it's Adam Warlock.
Gross! Please tell me Drax is the only one who's got to go in that creepy egg sack.
So the shepherds found fresh flock. Foolish followers.
Think fast, beard butt!
You know not the gravity of your treacherous trespass. You cannot quell a god. Prepare for oblivion, interloper.
Turns out Adam Warlock was the golden god that used to be worshipped by the Universal Church of Truth. He's also the source of the shadow creature manipulating Nikki and her followers, but I'll swing back to that in a second. After beating the ever-loving shit out of the entire team, Mantis gets Adam Warlock to stand down by explaining they came for his help in dealing with the church. He mellows out and then invites them into his gooey cocoon thingy. With Warlock's help, Mantis sends the others into Drax's mind to free him from the promise. They'll fight mental visions of Thanos, who kinda looks more like Steppenwolf here. Not digging that headpiece at all, and finally get Drax to accept the hard truth that his family is dead. Then they'll clear out the pieces of the shadow infesting Drax's mind, which looks like an evil reflection of Adam Warlock.
How you doing, big guy? You okay?
I am of sound mind, thanks to you all. I owe amends for my lapse in judgment.
Hey, you don't owe us squat. Ain't none of us perfect. It's kind of our thing.
How much do you remember?
Great darkness grew with every lie that I swallowed. The longer I remained with my family, the more certain I became that I could never leave. Peter Quill, your child is in danger. If her pain is half my own, the darkness may consume her entirely.
Not if I can help it.
Once Teal Space Kratos is back to being his old self, Morlock cleans himself up and explains what the hell is going on. Despite all his power and ability to heal, Golden Jesus used to feel aimless and without purpose. That was until the day he met Grand Unifier Raker and his ship full of sick people. Warlock used his power to heal the sick, who saw him as divine and began to worship him as a god. While he tried to keep himself humble, slowly his ego and hubris started to grow. A little voice in his head loved all the attention and worship. It fed off of it. This gave birth to the Shadow, to Magus. Feeling his evil side slowly consuming him, Warlock opted to try and expel him by removing the Soul Stone from his head with Raker's help. While the procedure worked in separating their souls, it flung both of them across the galaxy. Adam Warlock ended up on Lamentis, Raker believing his friend and god were dead, while Magus was trapped in the Soul Stone and flung into the quarantine zone. And you already know the rest. Peter accidentally freed him from the stone, then Magus possessed Nikki when she found the Soul Stone and Corel died. With Adam Warlock on the team, we stand a better chance of saving Nikki, but the odds are heavily stacked against us. When the Guardians get outside, they see the planet under siege by the Universal Church. Things have somehow gotten worse, as Nikki now has control of the Continuum Cortex. Not only does that mean nowhere has fallen, but also that the promise can instantly spread to every part of the galaxy, maybe even the universe. Forced to move before Magus can enact his plan, the gang head back to nowhere. Adam Warlock will confront and fight his old friend Raker, while the Guardians track down and free Cosmo from the promise. They then make a beeline for the Continuum Cortex, in order to free Nikki from the machine before she can complete the fulfillment, and draw all of the faith across the galaxy into herself. Peter and the gang free her in time, but she isn't too grateful. Nikki wasn't forced into the machine, she chose to do that. She's too far gone and dedicated to the cause to see reason. Also, the only guy who could help us got his ass kicked by a one-armed old man off screen. Aw, you suck, Adam Warlock. Nikki warns us not to interfere again before she disappears with Raker and Adam Warlock. The Guardians give chase, but are forced to back off when they discover that the Church's space station has a huge fleet of ships guarding it, which includes all of the Nova Corps ships. Well, looks like things are truly fucked. The Guardians are going to need a fleet of their own, but they don't have many options, since most of the galaxy fell to the promise, or hates them. So Drax proposes a crazy idea, convincing Lady Hellbender to help them. Since her personal army is mostly made up of monsters immune to the promise, she's their best chance of fighting through the fleet. Unfortunately, she still wants them dead, so Drax proposes an even crazier idea. Win her over by hunting down the fearsome space dragon, Fin Fang Foom. Shit out of options and screwed one way or the other, the Guardians of the Galaxy head to the ice world of Makla 4. I'm going to skim through things again since it's just endless fighting, but after aliens, Wendigos, and Peter unlocking his plasma shot, they fight and defeat Fin Fang Foom. Though they got a little carried away and killed him, which really pisses off Lady Hellbender when she shows up to see what we did. Luckily, Groot pulls a Deus Ex Machina out of his ass and uses his healing powers to revive the dragon. Lady Hellbender then bonds with Fin Fang Foom. I guess. Like, this version of the space dragon is way different than his comic counterpart, so I'm not sure if he's sentient or has been waiting for his true master. Think Daenerys Targaryen and her relationship with her dragons. But with a golden glow spreading across space, indicating the final steps of the fulfillment, Lady Hellbender drops her vendetta against us and agrees to lend her help.
Morgoth's breath!
Whoa! Yes! Lady Hellbender has arrived!
Guardians of the Galaxy, stop hiding! The monster lords of Seknarf 9 hunger for battle!
We're not hiding.
We are sneaking.
Because we need to get into Sacrosanct alive.
Then we will slaughter as many as we can out here while you fight your way.
Heading into the final battle, Lady Hellbender and her legion of monsters will fight the fleet of ships outside the Church's space station, while the Guardians sneak inside. Also, I don't know if I missed a cutscene or something, but for some reason the team all changed into new golden outfits once we're on board. I think it's foreshadowed by Rocket like several chapters ago that he ordered new outfits, but you don't actually see the team get suited up. Oh yeah, I kinda glanced over it, but one of the collectibles you can find are costumes for the team. They're kinda all over the place in terms of quality. Like, some of the comic-inspired suits are iffy, but the ones from the first Guardians movie, and the Horsemen of the Apocalypse ones are pretty awesome. Seriously, look at how cool Groot looks here. I'd say my only issue is that Peter gets a disproportionate amount of them compared to the others, probably because he's the only playable character, but I would have liked to see the rest of the team have more options, especially Gamora. These final chapters of the game are all just one long, drawn-out battle against the Universal Church of Truth. It's genuinely awesome, and the typical over-the-top, action-filled final act of an MCU movie. Depending on whether you convinced the World Mind and saved Cosmo, they'll join in to help during the fight too. While it's a solid build-up to the finale itself is a bit weak.
Guardians, breach my bindings. Even now, Raker readies his restoration ritual.
Rocket, can you bust him out?
If I gotta.
Let me guess. Raker's power proved more pernicious than predicted?
There's little point pondering possibilities past, daughter of Thanos. Soon feverous faith will flood Raker's fledgling and feed the fiend within.
Not gonna happen. We're gonna shut it down together. Right?
Right.
After all the fighting, the Guardians find and free Adam Warlock. They then try and fail to stop Nikki from completing the fulfillment, while Magus bursts out of a screaming Nikki. Growing in size, he consumes the space station, Lady Hellbender and her legion, along with all of our allies. Well, looks like it's all over. Or it would be, but Karel's spirit is still anchored to her daughter. She reaches out to Peter and pulls him into Nikki's mind. It's the same scene from before, Nikki calling Peter Dad and preparing a surprise party for Karel. Her spirit pushes Peter to try reaching Nikki again, and then gives us the worst reveal of the entire game.
Help her accept that I'm not coming back.
I wish you would have told me.
Told you what?
About Nikki. You know? You, me, 12 years ago?
Oh, Peter.
I did the math.
Her promise isn't real.
Yeah, I know, but the rest of it is. Right? You and me on Mercury? I remember that night.
So do I. But she isn't your daughter. She's not my daughter.
I don't understand.
She's a war orphan. On the shuttle home, the Kree Council was rounding up anyone who wasn't full-blooded enough. Nikki was this tiny little thing. I couldn't let them kill her.
So I'm not a father.
No. Well, not her father.
Wow. Okay.
I avoided bringing this up earlier, but I gotta say, I was never fully sold on the whole idea that Peter was Nikki's father, back when it first came up in Chapter 2. I've seen this trope play out way too many times, and it's always the same. Turns out the would-be dad isn't actually the father after all. But the way the game leaned into it, had everyone, even Peter and the rest of the team, treating it as fact, I bought into it too. And that's what sours me on the twist. Peter's whole arc throughout the game is about stepping up, becoming a better leader, moving on from his mom's death, and learning to put others before himself. Believing he had a daughter and trying to save Nikki was the thing that drove all that change. It gave him purpose, and for a while, it gave the story some really strong emotional weight. Shit, he looks so devastated that he isn't Nikki's father. Like, yeah, I get what the game is going for when it drops to reveal that Nikki isn't Peter's daughter, that she's a war orphan, not even biologically related to Karel, let alone him. Found family is a big theme in Guardians of the Galaxy, both in this game and in the MCU. But I don't know, the way this twist is handled feels like it has less to do with strengthening that theme, and more like the writers wanted to soften Karel's image, to avoid painting her as someone who kept Peter's child from him. If Nikki was never teased to be his daughter in the first place, the found family angle still could have worked just as well, if not better. Peter trying to save her out of love for Karel, and out of compassion for this kid caught in something way bigger than her. It could have stood on its own. As it stands, the twist lands with a bit of a shrug. It doesn't ruin the story by any means, but it does feel like a missed opportunity to hit that emotional note, with a bit more impact. This game hasn't gotten a sequel, and probably never will, but it would have made for great story potential with Peter navigating how to raise Nikki while being part of the Guardians. Even though Nikki isn't his daughter, Peter's not about to walk away. He's come too far, and he's not letting her go without a fight. He starts with some tough love, literally smashing the cake, decorations, and gifts she's prepared for Karel's surprise party. It gets Nikki angry, but that's the point. When she lashes out, Peter finally starts to get through to her. He doesn't sugarcoat things. He relates to her grief, shares his own pain, But she's not having it. Nikki snaps that his loss doesn't help with hers. And she's not wrong. She's watched the promise ease the pain of thousands of others, but it hasn't eased hers. What she really wants is her mom back, and if she has to accept an illusion to make that happen, then so be it, because in her mind, the truth means she's the reason her mom is gone. But Peter tells her she can't think like that. She didn't create Magus, she didn't release it, and Corell didn't die because Nikki was there. She died because Magus killed her. A lot of things led to that moment, but the Shadow's the one to blame, not Nikki. And that's when I realized something. Peter has been blaming himself this whole time for unleashing the Shadow. So this moment isn't just about helping Nikki let go of her guilt, it's about Peter letting go of his too. He doesn't offer empty promises, he doesn't tell Nikki it'll stop hurting, but he does teach her something that helps. A small way to carry the pain, and not be consumed by it. Light a candle. Honor the memory. Keep moving forward. It works. Nikki finally finds the strength to let go. She severs her connection to Magus, taps into the power of the Soul Stone, and goes full Super Saiyan. Yeah, I know it's a nod to her comic book heritage as a Mercurian, but the game never really explains that. With her link to Magus broken, Adam Warlock hops into the machine she was trapped in and begins absorbing Magus back into himself. But there's still one problem. Grand Unifier Raker. Still completely blind to the truth about Magus, Raker tries to stop the process, and that kicks off your final boss battle.
We ain't getting through that. We have to, or Golden Boy's toast. Focus on Raker's fan club.
If you didn't let Gamora chase him earlier in the story, this fight is even tougher. He's still got power, even missing an arm, and he brings a small army of fanatical priests along with him. You have to throw everything you got at him. Throughout the battle, Nikki tries to talk him down. She begs him to stop to see what's happening, but it's too late, and it's genuinely sad.
No! Oh, God! No! No! Please, not when we're so close.
Raker wasn't a monster. When he founded the church, it came from a place of faith and compassion. He believed in Adam Warlock's power to heal. He wanted to save people, especially from the disease that took his son. Even Warlock says he believed Raker was truly a friend, someone who helped remove the Soul Stone to protect others. But Raker's love for his son, that one deep, raw wound, was exactly what Magus exploited. In the end, Raker was just another victim of the promise, twisted by it like everyone else. And he dies without ever realizing it. As his final breath leaves him, he thanks Nikki, convinced she's given him one last look at his son. We don't know if it's real. Maybe it was a mercy vision from Nikki, maybe Magus was still in his head, or maybe Raker died in peace, clinging to one last illusion. Still, I couldn't help but pity him in his last moments. But either way, it's over. Adam Warlock succeeds and seals Magus back into himself. The day is saved. High fives are thrown all around, and the Guardians slowly march to the Milano, to the thunderous cheers of the people they saved. Cosmo and his puppies say hello, offering them work when they need it. Lady Hellbender says they're all good now, and comes off a little too strong hitting on Adam Warlock. Mission accomplished with Nikki and Warlock now part of the team. The Guardians of the Galaxy fly off towards their next adventure. And that was Guardians of the Galaxy. Hey, Warlock buddy, you good? You need some Tums?
Don't worry about little old me. I feel simply fabulous.
Come on! Eternal!
Took the words right out of my mouth, Peter. So, yeah, after all that we get one more boss fight. This time with Magus fully unleashed, having taken over Adam Warlock. And I'm just gonna say it, I really don't like this final battle. It feels clunky and kinda tacked on, like it was added just so the game could end on a big flashy note. Compared to the Raker fight, which had emotion, tension, and story weight, this Magus showdown is just there. Honestly, it could have been cut entirely. Just have the Guardians seal Magus with the Soul Stone right after beating Raker, and it would have felt tighter. Also, I didn't really like the fake out with Peter's death. He uses the Soul Stone, seemingly dies, and then Groot brings him back like 10 seconds later. I didn't even realize he died at first. I thought he was just passed out from magic rock fatigue. It's a weak moment and an otherwise good ending. But now, finally, the game is over for real. Adam Warlock, now back in control, takes the Soul Stone and puts it back in his head. Since Magus came from him, it's his responsibility to keep him in check. With the crisis averted, he sets off to do some good across the galaxy, and tells the Guardians to give him a call if they ever need help. Roll credits. Huh, why does it feel like I've forgotten something? Ah shit, I forgot about the fine.
What's happening? We appear to have lost power.
Sounds like a Nova Corps disabler. You guys paid your fine, right?
Oh,
And that was Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. This game isn't perfect. The combat gets repetitive, the final act stumbles, and there are a few narrative choices that could have hit harder, but even with all that, it's a damn good game. It's funny, heartfelt, and surprisingly mature. The characters grow, the writing's sharp, and the emotional beats land. This could have easily been another lazy licensed cash grab, but instead we got a thoughtful, character-driven story wrapped in a tightly designed single-player experience. Eidos Montreal clearly cared about these characters, and that passion came through in every scene. Whether it's the constant banter, the slow burn character arcs, or the surprisingly heavy themes of grief, guilt, and forgiveness, this game doesn't just use the Guardians for brand recognition, it gives them depth. It's not just about saving the galaxy, it's about healing, letting go, and finding your place in something bigger than yourself. It's a shame this game didn't get more recognition. It deserved better than being buried in the shadow of Marvel's Avengers. Since Square Enix stepped away from publishing Western games, and Eidos Montreal is now owned by Embracer Group, it's extremely unlikely Guardians will ever get a sequel. But this is one of those rare games that proves you don't need open worlds, battle passes, or live service bloat to make something great. Just give us a good story, great characters, and the guts to go a little deeper than expected. And that's the video. Thanks for watching, folks. And special thanks to my channel members and patrons for supporting the channel, including Alfred Correa, Bailey Morrison, Brad Taylor, Chicken D Samurai, Conyer, Eric Lee, Miles Garrett, Skillfuse, SR Powa, Thunder Muffin, and Reckless Nerd. I'm going to keep this outro short, so if you enjoyed the video, be sure to leave a like and comment with your thoughts down below. And if you're new to the channel, I'd love your support and if you subscribed. We're slowly winding down that road to 100k subs, and that silver plaque. I'm FuzzySlippers, and I'll see you later. Peace.